So in Melbourne, people don't have to wear masks everywhere anymore, but they are saddled with a lot of debt, as are other people around this country. Let's cross back down to Canberra now, but with a focus on Melbourne. We're joined by Federal Liberal MP for the seat of Higgins, Katie Allen. Thanks for joining us again, Katie. We've talked before about Daniel Andrews and the heavy debt that he's burdened Victoria with. Of course, this is happening in other states. New South Wales and Victoria today losing their AAA credit ratings. Should we be worried?
Look, I think, Chris, that Victorians have been through a very tough and hard lockdown. It's been a necessary lockdown, as we know. There's been mistakes made by the Victorian state government with quarantine and then with failure to keep up with contact tracing, which has meant that, unfortunately, we've had to have a lockdown that's had an economic impact. We've known about that all the way along. It's been a necessary lockdown for the mistakes that were made, but now we're going to start to see the economic fallout that's going to happen from that. And it is deeply disappointing, but it's something that we had to do in order to make sure that we keep people safe.
New South Wales is a coalition government. They've handled the pandemic much better. They've kept the economy much more open, yet still the debt is so high, not as high as Victoria's, but still so high that they've lost that AAA credit rating. It's really an ominous warning for the whole of the country, isn't it?
Well, I think, to be fair, that different economies run in different ways. So the issue in Victoria is that we do have a very big service delivery aspect to our economy. So cafes and restaurants and retail are a very important part of our economy, as are international students and travel and tourism. And those things have been very deeply affected by major lockdowns in Victoria that have been for very extended periods of time. So we feel in Victoria that we were several months really behind the rest of the country with regards to coming out of lockdown. So we're probably going to see those things translate to the economic impact, and Victoria will have a deeper issue as a result. So it is disappointing that we've got to this point, but we also need to be sure that we're moving out the other side, because really what businesses want is they want certainty. If they have certainty, then they can then deliver, and then consumer confidence rises, and then that helps to get the economy off its knees. And so it's very good that we're hearing that the different state governments are stepping up with their commitment to make sure that they've got the best quality, world-class quarantining, world-class contact tracing. We need to make sure they're putting all of their efforts and resources into making sure that we don't go back into lockdown. And we need to be very alert and very calm as we go forward to make sure that we stay certain about the steps that we are taking as a country.
Well, let's tap into your expertise and experience in public health, because this is what worries me. We've had state governments so panicky, so jumpy so far that they are likely to go back into lockdown again. Firstly, in Victoria, masks, you don't have to wear masks out in public, walking the street anymore. Sensibly, you need to wear them on public transport or when you're inside in a crowded area, but still mandatory. I mean, do you need to have the government making these against the law not to wear a mask? Can't we rely on common sense as we do in other states?
Well, it's interesting, as we went into lockdown, or as we went into restrictions of our personal freedoms, it's amazing how quickly they all happened. They happened sort of one after each another very, very quickly. And as we step out of it, it seems to be a slower step out. Now, it doesn't really make sense of why you do one way and one the other, but other than to say that the public have expectations. And so if we do these things one step at a time, then if we can see how that's affecting any potential outbreak that may occur. So it's very hard. You don't want to be whipping things on and whipping them back on again. So I think that the steps that we're taking are careful steps, and we know that people are happy to put masks in their pockets because we've been doing it literally for months in Victoria. So we have this expectation of carrying them when we walk outside, so why not just put them in your pocket? But I think at the end of the day, I've always said Plan A and Plan B is far more important than Plan C, and Plan A is having good quarantining as people return from overseas, heading into Christmas from hotspots. That is our number one defence. Closing our borders internationally has been our number one defence. It's been the most effective thing that we've done as a country compared to every other country, in North America and Europe that haven't done as well. And then, of course, contact tracing, because as people go into quarantining, we know a small number will leak through into the community. So we need very strong contact tracing to get on top of any spot fires that occur. So the masks at a very general population level are kind of nice to have as a sort of third layer, belt and brace. But at this point in time, I think we're seeing the confidence in the Victorian government that is actually getting back on top of this COVID outbreak, which is great for business, great for certainty, great for consumer confidence.
We heard from Anastasia Palaszczuk saying she wouldn't shut off New South Wales again unless the whole state was in lockdown. Now, we need the other state premiers to be a bit sensible now, don't we? They've all been too jumpy going in, but do we have confidence that Daniel Andrews, that Mark McGowan, that Stephen Marshall in South Australia won't be looking to jump in and lock down their states or throw up hard borders again when they get an outbreak of 10 or 20 people? I mean, this is what we've been through in the last couple of months. It's terribly damaging.
Yes, I think at the end of the day, sometimes people look to each other to see what happens and perhaps learn lessons from the way to react or not to react. I think that sort of calm, confident approach is really important, knowing what you can and can't do. And I think the Prime Minister has been very clear in his leadership on this. He said from the very start of this pandemic, we need to be very calm, we need to be certain, we need to provide confidence. We're not in this for 2 weeks, this is going to be many months, and we want to provide certainty to businesses so that they can plan for their future and not to overreact, but making sure the overreaction, if it is a reaction, it's not an overreaction, but it's a targeted response, not a blanket response, a targeted response to get on top of the hotspot outbreaks if and when they do occur.
Spot on. Thanks for joining us again, Katie.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Katie Allen there, the federal Liberal member for the seat of Higgins in Melbourne.